Welcome into Mississippi State Live post-game here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm Andrew Miller. We are basically more than a day since Mississippi State was officially in the post-game against Tennessee, but I was not able to go live following that game. Neither was Christian Ballard. I was in attendance in Starkville, and my setup was not going to make it possible for me to go live right after the game. So I had to set this up to do it on a Sunday evening. Christian may or may not join the stream. He had originally said that I think he had originally planned on it, but have not heard back from him. So we'll see if he joins in. If he does, fantastic. We'll have him be a part of it. But otherwise, it'll just be me, or at least for the time being. If you have not already, hey, shoot us a like, subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. And if you could, share the stream, share the channel. Really appreciate each and every one of you who are helping us build this thing up, and we want to keep it going. Mississippi State takes their first loss of the year. They fall to Tennessee 41-34 in overtime in Starkville, a game that had all sort of wildness and wackiness to it. A game that was played in front of a very fun atmosphere in Starkville that I got to say I was happy to be a part of. Even with the amount of orange that was in the visiting stands, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Still a great, fun atmosphere in Starkville in a juiced-up environment for what was a big game. A game that Mississippi State had opportunities in. And obviously you have a moment there in the fourth quarter where, I mean, you do take the lead, and you've kind of felt like you had a chance to put it away and potentially win the football game. But give up a long drive to Tennessee there, and then go 3 and out on the ensuing possession where you could have had a chance to go and get a game-winning drive and go 3 and out. But then you get your chance in overtime as well, and you get down to first and goal off, frankly, a very lucky pass. I don't think Shapen was throwing to who he intended to, but Anthony Evans makes a great catch and makes a great play to get you set up with a first and goal, and State's just not able to punch it in. And that is that. You fall again by a touchdown in overtime against a Tennessee team that's very good. I believe, let me pull up the updated AP poll. I think they're up to number 12 possibly. No, they stayed at 15. Okay, so still number 15 for Tennessee, which Mississippi State, unranked, but a team that they beat is ranked. That's always a fun thing. I might complain about that a little bit later. I don't know if I'll get to that in this show or not. But yeah, a game where State had plenty of opportunities. And, it's one of those where I don't want to say it was a wasted chance for State at a big win. Just because, it was a wasted chance at an upset for State to a certain extent because you had a lot of things that could have broken your way. I will also say that, Tennessee left a lot of opportunities off the board as well. I think if you look up, the post-game win expectancy on SP+, Tennessee still was overwhelmingly supposed to win this game based on the way things broke overall. If you look at things from an EPA standpoint, they had an edge. I think State actually had a slight edge in terms of the success rate for the game, but Tennessee was able to hit some bigger plays, and Tennessee defensively obviously hit the bigger plays, and those were things that made a big difference, at least in terms of the sacks and creating havoc. And that was kind of a difference in the game. When we talked about what were the concerns, what's up, Will? Glad to have you here. When we talked about, what were the concerns coming into this thing, my big concern was State's defensive front. It was Tennessee. I thought Tennessee would just kind of dominate the lines of scrimmage, and I was only half right. Really, I guess a quarter right in a lot of ways. But that one quarter ended up being pretty crucial because Tennessee's pass rush just was too much for Mississippi State. And there were too many passing situations where Blake Shapen was under pressure. State's tackles did not play well, and obviously you get an injury to Albert Reese, which certainly made things even worse there. And, 5 sacks given up on the day. And, again, a lot more pressure, and State just was not able to handle it well. They didn't have a lot of answers for that pressure. Some of it is just a case of, man, the pressure got there so quickly, it's what are you supposed to do? But it didn't feel like they had a lot of situations designed to get the ball out quick enough to counteract that, and it caused a lot of problems. When State was able to keep their run game going and lean on that, it helped them out a lot, and that's where, State just didn't get completely dominated in the trenches because they ran the ball very well, and they were blocking in the run game quite a bit at a good rate. I thought fourth quarter Tennessee made a few adjustments in stopping the run, although I think Albert Reese exiting the game played a role there. Like we'll say what you want about Reese, and he had some struggles in pass protection when he was in as well. Run blocking, he's been really good this year. And once he went down, that I think that impacted things quite a bit. And also, you just in the course of the game, guys get worn down. Defensively, State's defensive front did a good job. Tennessee did not just run them over. And some of that was State definitely played more aggressively than I thought they would. They still played with a lot of three-down linemen, which I thought made a lot of sense, but they sort of would load up the box a little bit more, played a lot of single high safety stuff. I thought they would play more conservatively when it came to pass coverage, even though they did occasionally, drop out into drop 8, which made sense. But, they left themselves susceptible to the big play downfield, and we saw that on a few occasions, but they also did a really good job of controlling the line of scrimmage from a run game standpoint. And they got some pass rush as well. Only 2 sacks, but I believe 6 quarterback hurries in this game. And you had a lot of guys create a lot of pressure. State's defensive front played well. Matthew Watkins, what has Jeff Lebby done with Coleman Hutz, or is he a completely different coach this year? I don't know if it's so much he's a completely different coach as it is he's got guys to be able to go and do things. Man, it's easier to coach when you got players who don't suck. I mean, it's just cut and dry on that. And I'm not saying that another year of experience didn't help him. I'm not saying that not having Mike McIntyre and Paul Rhodes on staff hasn't helped him. I'm sure those things have helped a ton. I guarantee you there's things that Coleman Hutzer looked at last year and said, okay, I should have done this differently. And how can I improve upon that? I'm sure having those new voices in the room have helped him out quite a bit. But I also think at the end of the day, talent makes such a big difference. And having guys that are more experienced in the system, because that's another thing to remember. We talk about new talent, and sure, there are new guys stepping in that are making big plays. There's also a lot of guys who are returning players that are just playing better this year. And that is where that experience and just the idea of, hey, I have to know where to be, and I have to be able to take away these things. These are my assignments, and I can just handle my assignments. Maybe we're not going to make the big negative play, but we're not going to give up a 20, 30-yard play like we did a season ago. Those things add up over the course of a game, and it leads to you making stops over the course of a game. And defensively, State played well enough. They played well enough to get a win here. If you look at the overall numbers, Tennessee finishes with, where's it at? 466 yards of offense, which, that's a lot. And 6.5 yards per play. They hit some explosive plays. It wasn't great. Passing defense didn't have its best day. But at the end of the day, they scored 41 points, and 2 of those touchdowns came off the defense. You had a fumble return touchdown and a pick 6. Now, I'm sure Tennessee would also point out they dropped a touchdown pass. They would also point out that, the OPI call they felt was bogus. And that's one where I do get their complaint. I don't think he really shoved him down as it is. There was some hand fighting, and State, and I guess it was Jefferson, kind of just falls over there. And I think it's one of those things where in real time it looked like OPI, which is why that's what it got called. I think that one could have gone either way ultimately. But sure, there were plays Tennessee could have had back. But that's I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. There were plays State could have had back as well. Brendan Thompson dropping a touchdown. You had a Devon Booth touchdown called back for holding. There were moments over the course of the game. Both teams missed field goals, right? There are moments over the course of the game that could have gone either way. I think that's why it hurt like it did. We were in that game the whole way. For sure, like I said, I have a hard time just saying State should have won because there were so many opportunities that Tennessee left off the board. I think both teams look at this and say, hey, there are things – these are the things that we did well. These are things we did poorly. It was just a lot of back and forth in the game, which in the end, it kind of makes sense why the better team ultimately wins out. And I guess the frustrating part of your State is that if you're going to spring an upset, you have to have breaks go your way and capitalize on them. And Mississippi State kind of went 50-50 on that. I mean, there's no better example than the fake punt followed by the strip sack. You have one of the ballsiest calls you could possibly have, and it works for you, and you set yourself up to really take control of the game. And then you have a strip sack, return for a touchdown the next play. Like nothing that there's not a better. That was the epitome of this ball game. I think that sums up the way this game went better than anything else. Is that each time you had an opportunity to do something, it went back against you. And again, if you're Mississippi State, you couldn't afford to have that many things come, bite you. You had the turnovers go in your favor to an extent and get a couple touchdowns off the board off them, but you commit two that turn into defensive touchdowns. Technically it was 3 turnovers because the punt. So I mean, you turn that into touchdowns, right? You capitalize on that, but there's just other moments you didn't fully capitalize on. And Tennessee was a team that was able to get away with some of it. Mississippi State was not. And that's, look, big picture, they're the better team. They're the more experienced team. Let me adjust my camera just a little bit. You understand that a little bit. Matt brings up, I'm now expecting 6-6 this year, but next year has to be a big year. I think next year definitely you're thinking you have to be able to take a step forward. But 6-6 is still a fair expectation for this team. I think you do have to come out of that game, I think, believing Mississippi State, if they can play Tennessee like that and theoretically could have won the football game, they're going to have an opportunity to get more wins over the rest of the course of the year. I guess let's dive a little bit into the specifics for both sides of the ball. Offensively for State, on the day, 378 yards of offense, 4.4 yards per play. Ran the ball well. 198 net rushing yards. It was 240 yards gained. So, I mean, you take out the sacks, and it was a really big day on the ground, but the sacks really sort of piled up on them, which I guess technically that doesn't count for there were a few tackles for loss, right? So that's not just accounting for sacks, but 198 total on the ground. Huge day from Fluff Bothwell. He runs the ball 23 times for 135 yards, averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. Devon Booth didn't have a big day average-wise, but he had some nice runs. 58 net rushing yards for him at 3.4 a carry. And it was kind of it was sort of just those two guys, which now in hindsight, I'm a little surprised why Xavier Gayden didn't get touches offensively. That does surprise me a bit. For the talk was this is going to be this guy coming in. I guess part of it is the idea of ride the hot hand, and Fluff was doing fantastic and Booth was showing you enough, but I thought it would have made sense to get Gayden in there. And I'm literally just having this thought now. This is not something I was thinking of during the time. First, I want to know why Shapen wants to run so bad when he knows he's slow and can't shake or run through defenders. So, okay, the thing on that, and I just finished rewatching the game. There's only twice that it's a designed run that he actually carried the ball. And, those are calls. There were quarterback draws twice that are called. So he's doing what he was called to do. The first one worked, second one didn't. The other two times you see Shapen run where he pulls the ball around the edge, they're trying really when they run that, they're trying to get the ball out to the perimeter to in one case it was to Traore. So the play they scored a touchdown on, they ran that in overtime and tried to hit it again, and that time Tennessee had it covered up. There was another point in regulation where they basically did the same thing, but they had Evans coming around on a swing pass. So instead of it being like a throw to the flat, it would have been a throw like on a bubble screen. Basically, it's triple option is what it is. They're trying to really get the ball out of the perimeter. And I also know the way they coach that play is aggressive pull from the quarterback. And I'm not saying that I know it because of literally I've seen the coaching clinic on that play. And they're kind of their aggressive quarterback pull. Specifically, the boot play where he has no chance of getting in the end zone and Traore was open. Are y'all talking about the last play of the game? I don't think Traore was open as people think he is. I got to say that. Now there is the one where he scrambles. I'm not going to go back and look at it right this second. Those last couple plays, I don't think guys are as open as people think. I saw the video clip where someone's like, Traore is wide open. He's that open after Shapen starts to make his throw towards the other receiver. That's why he gets open there, at least on the last play. If he goes to throw to Traore, it gets taken away. I don't necessarily think that was I don't really think he had a good option to go to on that play. But that is something I do want to talk about a little bit here. The other boot play, I don't know if he had Traore open. The last play I've seen people talk about Traore being open. I don't think he was. The boot play, I don't know as much about, but like the times where Shapen is trying to keep a couple of the times Shapen did keep the ball though, it's because like the play call is supposed to get the ball out to the flat. Tennessee had it covered up. And like one of them, like I get it, this one that really got blown up bad. It would have been blown up if he had handed the football off. It would have been blown up if he threw it to Anthony Evans. It just the play just didn't work. I don't think it was a case of Shapen thinking he's trying to do something that he's not. Now, as to why we didn't run on the last drive of regulation, yeah, I mean, look, that was a bit weird that they didn't try to hit one. I figured they would. It would have made sense to, but they took their chance in the passing game there. I am surprised State was not able to throw the football as effectively as they would have liked to against Tennessee. For as much as Tennessee's secondary has struggled this year, I thought State would have had a lot more of opportunities to throw the football. I thought they would have had more opportunities to push the ball downfield. They just didn't get a lot of those in this game. You didn't get a lot of receivers open downfield. I know Aiden Williams broke free the one time, and you had Brennan Thompson, and Thompson drops it. It's a perfect throw, and he's got to catch it, and if he does, it's a walk-in touchdown. Other than that, and again, I just got done with the rewatch, like when they tried to go vertical, they really did not have guys downfield the way you would have liked to. Matt pointed out they couldn't block to push the ball downfield. No, that's part of it for sure. That is definitely part of it for sure, is that the pass protection wasn't there, holding up to really get those shots down the field you would have liked to. But there was a lot of like having to set it up. You know, there's a few plays where you're hoping like as soon as you hit the back of your drop, you're able to fire vertically. There's been times they've been able to do it. They couldn't do it against Tennessee, which frankly, I mean, some of that is the fact that Tennessee knows what State's doing offensively, so they're able to deal with it a little bit better than a lot of other teams could. I mean, when you spend every day in practice going up against deep choice, you're going to probably defend deep choice pretty decently well. And they did. And frankly, Tennessee didn't run all that much deep choice because Tennessee's not running as much of the veer and shoot stuff this year. They're still running a lot of it, but I feel like they've changed it up more this year than Lebby has, which frankly, if you looked at Lebby at Oklahoma, that wasn't the case. Like Oklahoma Lebby, there was just kind of hints of the veer and shoot in there with a lot of other stuff mixed in. When you get to injuries, do we know anything about what happened to Thompson? Don't know, but I think the early word is he's probably supposed to be fine. I think. I'm trying to remember. Steve Robertson put out an update earlier today, and I don't remember everything he said when it came to everyone. I think they mentioned, though, that Thompson should be okay. We'll see. But, for the offense, again, the run game was there. And I'm surprised they didn't try to find more ways to get that going. They ran outside zone really well. That was a play that was big for them. And Fluff has been really good running outside zone this season. He's just a good back at reading that. State does a good job of sealing the edge when they run that. And Fluff has done a really good job of reading it. Booth has been fine at it too. That was a good play for them. Tennessee got better at dealing with it towards the end of the game, but I do think Albert Reese getting hurt played a role. Feel like next week might be a letdown spot. They played hard. Maybe not. We'll see. Definitely do want to see how they respond to this when they get to A&M. Going on the road after a loss like this, that could be tough. But I think the fact that A&M – I was going to say the fact that A&M is a good team means you should get up for that game, but I guess there is also the fact of if you don't get up, you might get killed. We'll see how that goes. But it's not like the Aggies look unbeatable. I mean, look, I know their defense did well against Auburn, but Auburn's offense has a whole lot of issues. Their defense has given up a lot of points this year, A&M that is. But yeah, I mean, look, the run game, you had success with it. I'm surprised you didn't see more of it towards the end. I mean, at least at the end of regulation. They tried it in overtime, and at that point, again, like I said, Tennessee started dealing with it better. That's where maybe you try to find a few more creative ways to get involved, just because those are the guys that's what was working for you in the game. But at the end of the day, you have the game plan you put in, so you got to roll with what you had. Passing game just was not there consistently. And I think some of it's shaping, some of it's pass protection, some of it's receivers. I left the stadium feeling a lot worse about shaping than I do now on the rewatch. And what I mean by that is like this morning before I got a chance to rewatch it. Because, I mean, those of you who y'all know haven't been to games, it is so hard to really know what's happening when you're at the game. And this is my first time, like, really trying to pay close attention during a game, and it was tough to get a great idea of what was going on. I had a general idea, but I took away a lot more on the rewatch. I think there were a lot of times where I think fans look at it as Shapen was the problem, and I kind of go back and look and it's like, like there's nothing there, and there's also nothing he can do there. Some of those sacks are like, of the 5 sacks, there's not a single sack that I look at as like fully a Blake Shapen problem. And 3 of them are unquestionably it's the offensive line, and there was nothing he could do based on how the play was designed to be run, based on what he's trying to do. It's fully offensive line. Of the other 2, one of them I can make a case that Shapen should have gotten the ball out right away, but again, it was still terrible pass protection. The other one is kind of weird because, again, I think that the play design I feel weird on, just to be completely honest, and what they were asking him to read. So and also, again, the offensive line gets cooked. So, like, there's every single one of those sacks, the O-line is a problem. And even on the 2 where, like, I could have made a case Shapen should have done better here, only one of them do I think his first read is there and he just doesn't hit it. But again, that's one where the play design, I kind of wonder if he's asked to do something different. I won't get into that here because it's kind of hard to explain just over video. Not fully knowing what they were trying to do on a particular play, makes me to where I can't sit here and say for sure Shapen like missed his first read. I think it is there. There was a time they caught on camera, you could see his head go to 1-2 sack. Yes, and that is one of this is one that I'm confused on. That one, if it's the second sack, he does it on the first sack too, but the first sack was a full-on covered sack. Like, all of his downfield options are taken away, and by the time he would have gotten to the check down, the pocket had collapsed. Like, the first one, yes, there is technically a running back open to his left. That is the last read for him. And the moment he would be getting to that, he's got everyone around him. He's got no chance to get that ball out. The second time, and I think this is what Matt is talking about, you see him go 1-2 with his head. That plays, I think, is an RPO because the O-line looks like they're run blocking on that play. And I don't know why you would be reading 1-2 on an RPO. It happens sometimes. There's a few plays where teams do try to get away with that. But part of the thing with RPO is like ball's supposed to be out. Or like we got some of it's part just ball's supposed to be out because we can't let the line get downfield. But also it's like the defense is coming in to defend the run, so we better get it out so that they can't get to you, the quarterback. And like 2 of those, there was a sack later in the game. The strip sack was on an RPO too. That's one though. It's not. I know ball's supposed to be out. He's on his first read. He's waiting for Mosley to hit the top of his route so he can fire, and it doesn't happen quickly enough. Not from a Shapen standpoint, but from the pass protection does not hold up long enough for Mosley to get open and for Shapen to hit him. Even trying to throw with anticipation, frankly, I think that play, if Shapen tries to throw it before Mosley's in his break, it still gets stripped because the defender was on him so quickly. But the other one where it's 1-2, I think it's an RPO. I don't know why you'd be reading 1-2 on an RPO. It's also a play where the box is light enough, he could have handed it off. But I know what he was doing. Tennessee's defense was out of sorts on that play. They had one defender over 2 receivers to the side of the field that he went to. So that's clear. Like, that's why he went into that play like, oh, I'm throwing this football because I've got 2 receivers against 1 defender. And I guess he thought he could just play off that one guy, and just the pass protection wasn't there long enough for him to do it. I say pass, bro. They're run blocking, but the blocking wouldn't have been there even if they had handed it off, I guess is the point, because they just didn't handle it. But look, there are several times where there are plays where in the moment I thought Shapen was in the stadium. I thought Shapen was late throwing the ball. Going back and watching it, I no longer think he was late throwing the ball. I think he threw it at the time he was supposed to. There are times that I look and it's like, why did you go there with the football? Having seen the rewatch, okay, I understand it a little bit more. I'm not sitting here telling you Shapen played a good game. That's not at all what I'm doing. There are still moments where he looks antsy in the pocket. There's still moments where he's not fully accurate. And there's moments where the timing definitely isn't where you would like it to be. I think your perfect world is that you get things set up to where he is able to get the ball out as quickly as possible. But part of the problem is and this goes into play design stuff, I don't know if they fully I don't know if they've done a great job of that, to be completely honest. And some of it goes into, and like when the pass protection being the way it is, you got to be able to do that. With the issues they have in pass pro, you need to have plays designed to get the ball out quick. And this gets into the receivers. And I know Brennan Thompson went down in that play to roll. I am wondering if State's got receivers who are capable of being a true go-to and a gotta-have-it situation. And this was a concern of mine coming into the season. I know after the first couple weeks, I felt like I had changed my tune. And I'm not talking about like the end of Arizona State gotta-have-it situation, like we have to go down the field and score. I mean, like, it's 3rd and 8. We know we have to throw the football. Can one of you guys find a way to get open? Are you going to either understand how to find the soft spot in the zone, or are you, if it's man covered, are you going to, by route running, beat your guy one-on-one? And I just don't know if they have shown that consistently enough, because I don't think it's like so many of these 3rd downs where it's a drop back throw. I feel like you have a lot of receivers in the same area. I feel like you have a lot of guys that are just covered up. Like, I don't feel like State consistently gets guys open in the short to intermediate part of the field. And I've seen Lebby do that effectively at other stops, which makes me wonder, do these receivers, is that not their strength? Like, we know Brennan Thompson and Anthony Evans can win one-on-one downfield. We've seen it. We also know that those guys, if you get them the ball in space, can be effective. It feels like that's kind of it right now. And as for other guys on the team, Jordan Mosley, Aiden Williams, I mean, none of those guys have shown that yet. They've not shown the ability to do anything like that consistently. I thought Sadu was a guy who could have been that player for them this year. And they haven't done he hasn't done much, or they haven't done much to get him the football. They got him the ball a little bit more in this game. And I'm not saying those guys can't handle that. I'm very much wondering, though, is that something that is a concern with this? I know last year with Kevin Coleman was going to find a way to get open. Like, on 3rd and 10, they could trust Kevin Coleman. We can at least go to him and have a chance. Do you have a guy that, A, can consistently get open like that, and B, you can trust to scheme him as the primary target, to where it's like, hey, this is your first read, and, like, we trust he's going to be open. Get it to him. That's a concern for me for right now for the State team. Now, a lot of college passing games aren't designed to handle those situations all that well. This is an offense that, at its core, it is inside run, quick throws out to the perimeter, vertical throws down the field. And obviously, we've done some more outside run this year, but it's still, we're using the run game to attack the box. Quick throws out to the perimeter to space the defense out. And then once they've committed numbers in the box, once you've spread them out, then we're hitting you over the top. They've got the run game part coming along. It's not fully there, but it's getting better and better. Yeah, they can win vertically down the field. I think they can do that. I think it just depends on, can you get the defenses out of handling it? Or can you get the defenses to not play back into coverage as much? They don't have the quick perimeter stuff handled because they can't block on the perimeter. State's perimeter blocking is garbage. Receivers and tight ends, they cannot block. All those swing passes, quick screens, stuff like that meant to get on the edge, it is almost never blocked up well. It is almost always a tight end whiffing a block in space. Anthony Evans, who I don't think is a guy you should be asking to block. I think he's the guy you try to get the football to. But, like, I remember week 1, they used him multiple times trying to have him as a blocker. Dude just couldn't do it. Like, that has been an issue for this team early in the season. And that takes a lot of that idea of, hey, get the ball out to a fast guy in space quickly. Don't worry about pass rush. We're getting the ball out. That prevents them from being able to do it. I was thinking about this the other day because it's like, man, State does not run a lot of, perimeter screens or like quick screens rather out to its receivers. They do some, but you don't see a ton of those, where a lot of the other teams that run this offense, they do that like 5 to 10 times a game. And then you do that and you set up the screen and go plays. Well, part of that's because I don't think State's got receivers who can block it. Like, yeah, I noticed that. It's bad. They can't block that stuff on the edge. So there's like a whole dynamic to the offense that is really meant to help this offense click that they can't handle well. And again, I don't know if they've got the receivers to like be a true drop back passing team either. To where, okay, well, we don't got to have that, but we can get into more of a drop back game And look, you would hope veteran quarterback and Shapen would be able to pick up the slack on some of that. That is where we get into limitations with him. I can say all these things about receivers. I can tell you about offensive line. And yes, like you expect you expect a veteran quarterback to be able to handle and pick up some of that. It's tough to always at college, or it's not always easy to do that in college because at the end of the day, college football players are limited, and if you don't have pieces around you, there's only so much you can do. But you also need to be able to have the other pieces around the quarterback as well, and like that. Yeah, you would hope Shapen could lift him up, but I also can see where it's like I don't know if they've put him in the best position to succeed. I do think they were very clearly building this team around the mindset of we'll be able to just kind of take the vertical shots. We have guys who are deadly in space. We'll run the ball effectively enough that we can handle that. And I think that's starting to come along. But as I said, there's a whole dynamic there, like the whole idea of players in space. It's not working as effectively as you would have liked it to. And that puts big limitations on what the offense is able to do. That's a concern for me moving forward from what how much can the receivers help out the offense? And look, I think Brendan Thompson, despite his size, may have some of that. I think he's a good route runner. Maybe that's a guy that if he is healthy, is able to go, that makes a big difference for you and helps you out quite a bit. But those are the things that I do wonder with this offense. But I mean, look, overall offensive takeaways, O-line run blocking has gotten better and better. They have got to get better in pass protection, which means you got to figure out offensive tackle. Like that is going to be a big concern for them going forward. Otherwise, like it's going to really hurt this offense. They need someone at receiver to step up as a true go-to target that you can consistently rely on. That's going to be huge for this team. And look, Shapen's got to play better, right? He does have to handle things better. You do need a 6-year quarterback to step up and be able to carry some of the load offensively. That all leads into the Kamario Taylor discussion. And what I would say is, no, it is not time to bench Blake Shapen, especially having gone back and watched the game. I don't think he played as bad as a lot of fans feel like he played. However, with the limitations State has and the inconsistency State has, you have to find ways to generate offense as much as possible. And that guy is too good of a playmaker to not get him involved. And it goes beyond the occasional snap where you're bringing him in to be a battering ram. I'll also say, like, I don't want to see him coming out there and it's a trick play every other time as well. Like, it didn't really work in this game. They tried it on a reverse and it just wasn't really there. I had to bite my tongue seeing Kamario's dad talking crap on Twitter. Yeah, that's not a great sign. Anytime you get the parent who is going to bring stuff up online, that's not ideal. But, it is what it is. Which, by the way, his red shirt wasn't burned. Let's be clear that he didn't play against Arizona State. Now, I think the fact they played him in this game very much tells you they are going to burn his red shirt. Like, they're going to continue using him, and I think they should. I think it makes sense to get Kamario involved. Everything I was talking about there with the run game, having a quarterback that can be a part of that and add a dynamic to that helps a lot, because this is one of those things with the passing game. It leads into the passing game as well. If so much of your passing game is going to be entirely reliant on being able to hit vertical shots downfield because you can't really drop back and throw the way you would like to, and you also can't really do the quick touches as much as you would like to, you better have a quarterback who can make a play happen with his legs. Because one, that expands your run game more to where you can lean on that more. Two, and the defense has to respect that. Two, it does give you an opportunity if you are going to take the shots down the field of a guy who can actually escape in those moments. Because that's where Blake struggles. Like, Blake can't escape. I still think Blake is the guy who needs to be operating the offense most of the time. I think that's who you need to lean on. But Kamario can have a role in this offense for sure. And they got to find a way to make use of him. Because, I mean, at this point, it would help. Get Kamario more involved. It takes a little bit of pressure off of Shapen, I think. And let's give him a drive here or there. Let's let him throw some passes. Let's do some stuff like that where we get him involved in some different ways. I think it makes a lot of sense because you've got to find ways to generate offense. I just don't see Kamario doing good enough around this O-line to justify him starting. No, look, I agree. that I will say, and I know I'm not trying to contradict what I just said, because I made the point of a guy who can escape when there's pressure. It is often overblown how much a dual threat quarterback can escape pressure. In fact, a lot of dual threat guys tend to be pretty bad about taking sacks. Lenore Sellers has been awful at it. Jade Daniels, I remember he took a lot of sacks at LSU, especially his junior year. Despite being a guy who can escape, who could scramble and make plays, if you got him under pressure, tend to take sacks. And some of it's because those guys try to make something happen that's not there, and it leads to them going down. Putting Kamaru in a situation where he's going to be under pressure so quickly is not the smart move to go with. I just think it does make sense to occasionally find some ways to get him out there. And then then again, if all he does is come and run, that's pretty predictable. Yeah, no, they need to find a few different ways to get him involved other than just, hey, this guy's running the ball. Like, find some ways to let him use his arm and take some shots down the field. Get some other playmakers out there with him and find some different things that you can set up. I think that all makes a ton of sense. But at the end of the day, he's too good of a playmaker to not get involved, and your offense just keeps getting itself into stagnant positions to where you're just not able to move the ball as consistently as you would like. You have to find ways to generate it, and if that means it's the playmakers generating it, that you have to go to. Defensively, I come away feeling okay, feeling better about State's defense. They made enough plays in this game. Like, I think you have to be pleased with what that group is going to be able to do coming forward. I understand Tennessee put up a lot of yards. I understand Tennessee, again, had a touchdown taken off the board, had another touchdown that was just dropped. It could have been a bigger day. Ultimately, though, 27 points allowed, including overtime from your defense. And they gave you the ball back multiple occasions. They forced punts on multiple occasions. And I was surprised a few times Tennessee didn't go, but they found ways to get you the football back. They created turnovers. They created havoc. I don't feel as good about State's secondary because there was a few times you saw these facing a receiving core that's got so many players that are dynamic definitely hurt State. It's not the same as dealing with Arizona State where it's one guy in Jordan Tyson. Like that one guy, he's a first-round pick, but it's different when you have several other options you have to deal with, like Tennessee does. That said, look, once Kelly Jones went down, and I know he came back at the end, so Kelly Jones is supposed to be pretty good, supposed to be good going forward, I believe. State secondary still made some plays. It's not like they got burnt every single time. Tennessee had and also State played aggressively. State took chances. And what I come away with is State's defensive front, both D-line and linebackers, I feel way better about. We'll bring it up. I was impressed with Ty Lockhart. Yeah, that was one of those where in the game, at the time, I didn't realize what was going on. I didn't know who was making those plays. Tyler Lockhart had a huge day. Pulling it up here right now. So 6 total tackles for him, 2 quarterback hurries. But he was creating pressure. He was getting to the ball carrier quite a bit. And I thought, there were times he looked good in coverage. He looked like a guy who understood he looked like a big time college football player, but he looked like he understood how to step in. Darian Gillette down, not having him, Lockhart stepped in and played really well. Sakari Tillman, I felt like this was the game you were looking for from him. 6 tackles, had a big sack, pair of tackles for loss, gets an interception. I know the interception, it's a right place, right time deal. But still, man, a really good game from Sakari Tillman, creating a lot of disruption. Sorry, I lost which tab. Brandon Jennings with 10 tackles. That guy had a pass broken up, getting involved. You had 6 tackles from Jerron Manning. And look, he got burnt by Matthews from Tennessee. Should have been a touchdown. But at the end of the day, it wasn't. And he ends up with an interception. He ends up breaking up 3 passes. Made a really nice play there in the end of regulation where he's got a one-on-one in coverage. And if the pass is caught, it's going to be game over. And he makes a play to keep Tennessee out of the end zone there. He outside of getting burnt bad that one time, he played a really good game for Mississippi State. And obviously that's a guy on the back end, but he stepped up and was able to make an impact. So State's, linebackers and safeties, I thought, made some nice plays. D-line, though, Calvin Dinkins was outstanding. Now, four tackles on the day, and doesn't record any other stats. He was creating disruption. He was pushing around Tennessee's interior. He was both in the run game and in the pass game. He was really good. Trevion Williams had a nice pass rush snap. You had Malik Silla get a pair of quarterback hurries. DJ Reed gets a quarterback hurry and also had a sack. He was, making plays. That's another guy that you've been expecting to step up. Just multiple guys along the defensive front that were really impressive in this game. That is huge for them moving forward. We've talked about, after losing Will Whitson, the struggles this group has seemingly had. They played really well against Tennessee up front. They got pressure. They bottled up the run game. If they're able to do those two things over the course of the season, that'll help them out a lot. And look, Kelly Jones, was it the best game for him when he was in? No, but he's still a guy you can trust. I think Brumfield could be quality for you. Even if Jones is sort of just going to be your one guy in the secondary, if you are able because of what your defensive front can do, get pressure and limit the run game, and you got one guy at corner that you can trust, hey, for the most part, he's going to hold his own out there, your defense is going to be good enough to give yourself a chance, which is all you can ask of this unit. Like, ultimately for State, like, offensively is where they've got to be better. Like, the defense is doing what you should ask of it. Overall defense played better than I expected. Yeah, I was impressed with what I saw from MSU defensively. I'm excited about some of the guys who stepped out on the field and stepped up. Now, you got to get guys back healthy. You need Isaac Smith, and I think Smith is one of the guys who possibly should be okay. Kelly Jones came back in at the end, so that's probably a good sign. Hunter Washington, you still want him out there. Brian Lanier, you want him out there. Like, you need guys to get healthy. You can't keep losing players. But this defense is going to be good enough to give State a chance. They got to get more consistent offensively. However that comes about, we'll see. But right now, State's defense is giving themselves a chance. And, offensively, they just didn't get enough in this game. But overall, you got to be pleased with what you saw from the defense. Big picture for this game, as frustrating as it is to take another heartbreaking loss, I'll be honest, to have a heartbreaking loss again for Mississippi State at this point, considering where they've been the last couple of years, it doesn't feel better leaving the stadium than a beatdown, but it looks a lot better on the scoreboard, and it looks a lot better for your program to be competitive. I think, one of my friends, he kind of summed it up. I mean, in a little bit of a way, this kind of cancels out Arizona State, right? You've had two games against good teams, and they've gone separate ways, both down to the wire. You got the one win, you took the one loss. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's fair for this team. They've been competitive with two good teams that they've played, and they've gotten a win in one of those. And then they handled their business in all the other games. It is very clear this team, we keep saying it every week, but it's still obvious. They are significantly better. And look, I think there was a world where even after the 4-0 start, you could have looked at going into SEC play and man, that's a really tough SEC schedule. It's not out of the question that they may struggle to find 2 wins. Even in a loss, I come out of that saying they will find 2 wins. And if they don't, that's going to be really crushing. If they don't, maybe, I don't know if it's things change, barring injury, whatever. If they play like they played against Tennessee, they will find ways to win a pair of football games over the rest of the year, get to a bowl, which would be so big for this team moving forward. You've got the program moving in the right direction. Oddly enough, and I guess Jeff Lebby's fallen victim to what seems to happen to every offensive coach that comes here, you got to get the offense up to the next level. If you can get the offense clicking more consistently the way it needs to be for a Jeff Lebby team, I would say this team could do better than 6-6. If they get the offense to start playing at a reasonably good level, at that point we're talking about a team that could easily win 7 games, maybe find a way to get to 8 wins. And that feels like a lot given the schedule, but ultimately, Arkansas just fired their coach, and their defense is hot garbage. Now, State's defense dealing with, Arkansas, it could be a challenge, but we saw Tennessee's better than Arkansas offensively. Arkansas's offense is good, but Tennessee's is better. I know you got to go on the road, so you don't get the home field advantage helping you out there. But, you can win that football game. Florida can't score. So, you feel like your defense should be able to do well against Florida. Now, Florida's defense is good, but can you go on the road and make enough plays on offense? If you get more out of your offense going forward, you got a chance at Florida. A&M's defense gives up a lot of points. State, I worry about State trying to cover Mario Craver, which sucks to say, when that's a guy you had in your roster, and Kevin Concepcion, but A&M gives up a lot of points. You will have a chance to score in that game and have an opportunity. You could beat Texas A&M. Georgia does not look incredible, right? Texas has not looked incredible. I know their defense. Texas is a team where defensively I think they're going to be so good that it'll probably be able to handle State. Mizzou, that's weirdly one where they just look really good on both sides of the ball and you're on the road, right? So I feel weird putting Mizzou in a situation where I can't say you got a chance there. But I will say, we talked about this before the season, that's like an ultimate sandwich spot for Missouri because I think they play Oklahoma the week before, and then it's the Arkansas game to end the year. That could be a big letdown potentially between two road games. I know Ole Miss looks really good right now with Chambliss in at quarterback. I still don't know that that's an incredible team. I think they've kind of been at the end of the day with Ole Miss, it was close with Arkansas. It was competitive with Kentucky, two teams we know are not good. And yes, they get the win over LSU. At this point, we have to say LSU is not that great. I think LSU is a good team, and Ole Miss is a good team. But LSU is not a great win. I know, even with where they were ranked. So this State team, the way they played against Tennessee, you can find a couple more wins the rest of the way. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to give yourself a chance. If you get the defense you got today, every game the rest of the season, and offensively you get a little bit better, I think you're talking about a team that you're going to be really pleased with when it's all said and done. And that's a big step forward for this program. Closing thoughts from me, the top 25 thing, I mean, you knew it was going to happen, but it's utterly ridiculous that we're going to rank Arizona State after beating TCU, and Mississippi State has the head-to-head win with the same record. And if you're looking at Mississippi State, you have a win over number 25 and an overtime loss to number 15 and 3 blowout wins. That team's not ranked. But Arizona State, who lost to you, does not currently have a ranked win, by the way, because their ranked win dropped out. And also did not look impressive in their other non-conference games. They're ranked. Okay. I get it. They're not going to move State up. I'm not worried about it. Bulletin board material. Do your work in the shadows. Hey, yeah, take it to use some motivation. The disrespect you. I understand ranking State after a loss was going to be tough. There are people who would have lost their mind over that, SEC bias. But throw somebody else in there. I wouldn't have cared if Utah was still ranked. Utah is still, I think, a good team. South Florida, rank them. Rank Memphis. Why not? I mean, it doesn't have to be Mississippi State. It's just don't rank Arizona State if you're not going to rank Mississippi State. That's the garbage there. The seeding thing, I guess that's another takeaway. The faculty thing is a little overblown. Somebody on the board said it's literally they have one section. So the whole takeover thing for Tennessee extends beyond just the faculty. That's not me making an excuse for them, because the faculty that put their tickets on the open market every single week and don't go to the games, I do think something needs to be done about that. Don't buy your tickets if you're not going to attend. We're giving you tickets at a highly discounted price. Either go to the game or give them to a State fan. Don't just give them. Don't go and sell them on the open market, so visiting fans are able to eat those up. But I mean, it was more than the faculty section. It's much of that east side, including the east side upper deck. And look, some of that is Vol Nation. Tennessee has a national fan base, at least across the South, so a regional fan base that is big and likes to travel to games. So they're always going to travel well. You're always going to see a lot of them everywhere they play. That's a part of it. And it certainly looked worse because you were doing a whiteout and, they're going to be wearing orange. But, yeah, man, ultimately you gave them the opportunity to buy a bunch of tickets because a lot of tickets were not bought by state fans. Season ticket sales also were not as good, right now. And I get it. You're coming off 2-10. But you set yourself up for something like that to happen. And there's ways you got to be able to handle it better. You got to find ways to trying to keep the tickets within the fan base, right? If you're a state fan and you don't want that to happen to you again the rest of the season, buy tickets, go to games. Really that simple. But overall for Mississippi State, I do think they need to look into the process of finding ways to keep that as limited as possible because it certainly wasn't a great look. Now, overall for me, I'm in the stadium for the first time in 4 years. I do like the game went on long enough that we got to have like an actual light show. That was awesome. Really cool atmosphere, fired up crowd. Even with the Tennessee stuff, it was still a really juiced environment. Was it the loudest Davis Wade has been? No. It was louder against Alabama. It was louder in 2017, louder against Auburn in 2014. There have been other games over the years that have definitely been louder. But it was still a fired-up atmosphere that made a difference. They were able to make some big plays, and I think definitely aided in disrupting Tennessee at times. You're going to want to have more of that, right? If you want to have an opportunity to beat a Georgia, to beat a Texas, and obviously beat that team at the end of the schedule, you're going to need a crowd like that the rest of the way. And, look, I still think this is a team that I hope fans can get behind and get fired up for. Because, look, they're not a bad football team. They're actually a pretty good football team who's going to be able to win some games this year and have a pretty nice season. That'll do it for me today. Little update on the schedule. We will not be going live on Monday night. I'm going to have work things going on. So it's just not going to work for me that evening to do the show. So Tuesday night is when we will do our, look ahead to the next weekend. Final thoughts on Tennessee, any thoughts that we do have, but, starting to our Texas A&M preview. Obviously, we'll have updates from Jeff Lebby at that point, hopefully on injuries. Although maybe not, because frankly, Lebby now we're in the season, part of the season where he can use the excuse of it'll be on the injury report. So maybe we won't know anything, but maybe there's been some news behind the scenes. So any other fallout from the weekend we'll be able to discuss, plus do our look ahead to Texas A&M. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. Really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't already liked the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. And if you could, share the channel, share the show. Really appreciate those of you who have done that to keep this thing building up. Thanks everybody for listening. As always, swing your sword. Hail State.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click Join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.